And then, of course, we finish with supplication. There are various supplications that the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, and some particularly were more, I suppose, emphasized. One of which was for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to take refuge in God from the punishment of the hellfire, from the punishment of the grave, from the trials of living and dying, and from the trials of the Dajjal or the Antichrist, which seems like an unusual end after what otherwise seems to have been a largely quote unquote positive, right, or optimistic type of narrative through the prayer, if you want to put it that way. It's like just before we finish, we're almost, it's like whatever else happens, just safeguard us from these, worst possible outcomes, if you like, And then there are many others. And frankly, it's open to any kind of supplication. The point to emphasize here is that culturally speaking, a lot of us have become used to the idea that the prayer is not the place for supplication, but after the prayer, that's when we raise our hands and make and offer our supplications. But that doesn't seem to be prophetic practice. Prophetic practice seems to be to fill the prayer itself with all sorts of supplication, sometimes right at the beginning after the takbir, in the prostration, at the end of the prayer, just before the salam, right? And so definitely take that opportunity to infuse your salah with supplications, with extra supplications, in between the prostrations, of course, as well, which we mentioned. So definitely do that. And don't if you want to supplicate after salah, like I'm not saying not to do that or to just take away from that, but just realize that that's more of a time for the Prophet, peace be upon him, in which he would just generally glorify and praise Allah, and remember Allah, if you like. But the requesting was typically done in the prayer, and it kind of makes sense if you understand prayer in the way that we've been speaking about it. That makes sense. I mean, this is the time to ask, because in a sense, once you've looked to the right and left and you've said assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, it's like you've left that intimate company now. So it's kind of an odd thing. It's like I've walked out of the palace, now I'm starting to ask, right? But hang on a second, you were just there. So why don't you just ask now, right? So something to bear in mind.